In Des Plaines, Illinois, near Chicago, a man who served time in prison for sex crimes was let out. Today, they found the bodies of at least 3 young boys buried under his house. He is charged with murder.
Police have been watching John Gacy's suburban Chicago home for the past 10 days. They became suspicious when 15-year-old Robert Peast disappeared after he allegedly was last seen with Gacy. This morning, police searched Gacy's home and found the decomposed remains of 3 bodies in a dirt crawl space under the house. They suspect there are several more bodies buried here.
It's suspected because of the looks of the area down in the crawl space. There are some other mounds, and appears to be more there.
Gacy is a 36-year-old building contractor who reportedly dressed like a clown to entertain at children's parties. Prosecutors say he once went to prison for a sex offense in Iowa. This afternoon, Gacy was charged with murdering Robert Peast. And after hearing the remains of more bodies were found at Gacy's house, Judge Marvin Peters ordered him held without bond. At the hearing, police said Gacy has confessed to the Peast murder. He will be examined by a psychiatrist. Jim Cummins, NBC News, Norwood Park, Illinois.
Everybody, welcome. Today on Coffee Talk, Karen Conti. Karen also is John Wayne Gacy's defense attorney. You can check her new book out, Killing Time with John Wayne Gacy. Just click on the link right above here. You weren't trying to get him out of jail just to clear the air. You just didn't want him. You don't believe in the death penalty. Just suffer in jail, just sit there and rot. That was right to sum it up, correct?
Right, because when he was committing his crimes and got arrested and convicted and sentenced to death, I was in high school. So, you know, in the Chicago area, he was the boogeyman when I was growing up, and I had never even thought about this, you know, him during 14 years while I'm going to college, going to law school. Now I'm a lawyer. I'm really, you know, wet behind the ears, and I get this call to represent him. And of course, you know, all of his appeals had been exhausted. So now it was really just the death penalty. Was he going to be executed or was he not? There was never an idea that he was actually innocent. That would have been a really hard one. So it was really just to stop the execution.
Don't look at me as an innocent babe of the woods.
Gacy, it's time for you to die.
Just to stop it. Wow. But going back to your father, it was something that he said when you were a kid that kind of triggered the light bulb, if you could tell the viewers here for us.
Sure. My dad had to remind me of this because I was too young to really remember it. Apparently something came on the radio about someone being executed. And my dad said, as most men that age, you know, would say, is like, hey, if someone kills someone, they deserve to be killed too. And I turned to my dad and I said, what is that? That doesn't make any sense. That's like, you know, punishing me for having a messy room by coming in my room and messing it up. So there was born the lawyer, I suppose. But I never believed in the death penalty, even though my parents did. And I remember fighting in social studies in high school and arguing and debating. I was always completely against capital punishment, no matter what, no matter who the person. I don't know where that came from, but it's interesting that so many years later, it now comes to roost.
And then here you're entering I mean, when you think about serial killers, you think about Ted Bundy, you think about, you know, John Wayne Gacy, you know, you think about or Jack the Ripper, that's old school, you know, but you think about, you know,
Dahmer, yeah,
Jeffrey Dahmer, which we're as the innocent people, the viewers watching the show, we're so interested in it. We're so curious. Where did it happen? The locations, which you talk about, and so much in your book resonated with me. Like before you became even a defense lawyer for John Wayne Gacy, you said you were, what was the term you used? A serial killer junkie or something like that. I forget the exact quote. You could quote me how you were curious where Jack the Ripper was, the locations and all this stuff. You were with your friends. You know,
right.
we're so curious about this stuff.
I think I went like, I don't know, 100 miles out of my way or something to get to Lizzie Borden's home. So to take the tour there, because I knew all about Lizzie Borden. So no, yeah, I was always a person who read about it, watched the TV shows, always had my speculations about who Jack the Ripper was. So, you know, and a lot of us, I don't think there's anything wrong with it. I used to think there's something wrong with my head here, like reading all this gore. But, you know, there's psychology behind it, especially women. Women really like true crime even more than men. And they say that there's something about it that's self-protective, that women always walk around, you know, men don't understand this, but when you're walking down the street or jogging with nothing in your hands, you're still a target of crime. So people
Yeah.
don't understand that women, they're always on their guard and they don't want to be, killed and raped and all that. So they watch these shows to kind of maybe get some ideas and make themselves feel safer, which I think is really interesting.
Well, it brings awareness. All these stories brings awareness, and lock your doors. Look behind, have eyes behind your head when you're walking around. Especially nowadays, things are more crazier than ever. So you really want to be aware, and it brings awareness. All this,
Mhm.
all this stuff. Um, Now here you are. You talk now. You finally get to meet face to face. You talk about it in your book, meeting John Wayne Gacy, what you went through, which that was a whole other part of the book. How getting through to prison, how they're patting you down, getting real intrusive with your body, with your partner's body, just the whole prison world. It's like another dimension when you walk through a prison, isn't it? For the viewers.
It is. And I really would love to say to everybody, if you ever get a chance to go to a prison, you should experience it because it is a whole world. It's a microcosm of the world. It's a place where if you don't think it's punishment, it's punishment. And it's also sad. And I think that's the overwhelming feeling that you have this place where people are so bad that they've done such terrible things that society has to put them in a cage that's half the size of a parking space. And that's the way they live their lives. And again, I'm not saying, let them out, but I'm just saying, what happened to these people
Yeah.
along the way? I'm quite sure they weren't born evil, but what mistakes did they make? Was it a one-time mistake? Was it a lifetime of mistakes? Was it, something in their brain that caused it? Was it a drug-induced moment? Whatever it is, they probably would see the prison facade and never see it again, ever, because it's a one-way street. And that is sad.
Yeah. And some of these people in prison, this is their home. That's all they know. That's
That's
their
all they
life.
know.
That's all they know. Like John Wayne Gacy, he didn't want to get out. He wanted to stay there.
He did. And I think people are a little surprised when I say that because I was surprised. I said something to him, in joking, saying like, you're going to come out and he said something, I'm going to come out to your partner's surprise party. I said, John, the idea that you're going to be alive, out of jail and invited are like not going to happen. And we were kidding about it. And he said, well, I'd never want to get out anyway. And I said, why? And he said, I wouldn't be safe outside of prison, which is funny because death row is a very dangerous place. But what I think he was really saying is that I think when he was ramping up and, serial killers, at some point it becomes they need more and more to feed that evil urge. And I think that it was too much for him. Not that he was regretful or remorseful about his conduct, because I don't think he had any of that. But I think it was just too much for him. It was too stressful. And so in prison, he lived an orderly life where he could control his urges and just live his life the way he wanted to live it, such as it was. But yeah, he didn't want to get out.
He didn't want to get out. But he was happy. I mean, he was, we all know the story. He was attacking boys about 33. There could be more, right? And but did he have a life? Did he have a boyfriend in jail? Did he ever say anything to confess or talk about that stuff?
No, he never told me he had a boyfriend in jail. My guess is that he didn't. He had a lot of visitors. He had a lot of people he corresponded with. He kept meticulous records, like almost neurotic records of
Yeah.
all the people who wrote to him, and he did paintings. And he had a life that was orderly. And because he was making some semblance of money, little tiny money by these art. I say art in quotes, the most horrible stuff you've ever seen. He was able to buy security in the commissary. So if there were cigarettes and food and stuff, he could give that to other inmates to protect him because people like Gacy, are not received very well in prison. And in fact, he was stabbed by one of the other inmates and pretty badly injured. So yeah, I would say he's happy. I would say he lived a life of order and contentment.
That's all we have time for today, but don't worry, we'll be releasing more clips of my conversation with Karen. If you want to see this episode now unedited, join our members only club. Right there, you can catch all our episodes unedited. And make sure you get Karen's book, Killing Time with John Wayne Gacy. Links are right above here or go into our description. Now click on the box right here for our next episode and subscribe and hit the bell to be notified so you don't miss any episodes coming your way. Who loves you, baby? We do. Thanks for watching.